Captain Lite stood at the observation deck of Vega Prime Station, watching ships from dozens of alien worlds dock at the massive structure. The station stretched 4 kilometers in every direction, its metal corridors bustling with creatures he had only seen in textbooks just 5 years ago. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others crawled on multiple limbs or floated in special atmospheric suits. The sight still amazed him, even after months of diplomatic missions. "Captain, Ambassador Yoon is ready to see you," said Lieutenant Kimbo, approaching with a datapad in her hands. Her young face showed the same wonder Li Tae felt when looking at the alien vessels. Humanity had been part of this galactic community for such a short time that everything still felt like a dream. Li Tae nodded and followed Kimbo through the curved hallways of the station. The walls were made of a strange blue metal that seemed to glow from within. Lian writing covered information panels, though translation devices made communication possible. The air smelled different here, carrying hints of atmospheres from worlds humanity had never visited. They reached the human diplomatic quarters, a small section of the station that felt like home. Earth flags hung on the walls next to pictures of major human cities. Ambassador Yoon sat behind her desk, reading reports on her computer screen. She looked up as Li Tae entered, her expression serious. "Captain, thank you for coming so quickly," Yoon said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. "I need to brief you on today's council session before we attend together." Li Tae sat down, noting the tension in the ambassador's voice. "Is there a problem with our membership application?" Yoon sighed and turned her screen toward him. "Several problems, actually. The Rolani Collective has raised concerns about human expansion rates. They claim we're growing too fast and taking too many resources. The Mothery Trading Union worries will disrupt their economic networks. The Drachner Empire questions our military capabilities. Li Tae frowned. "We barely have enough ships to defend our own colonies. How could we threaten anyone?" "It's exactly what concerns them," Yoon replied. "They see our rapid technological advancement and worry about what we might become. In just 50 years, we went from 1 planet to 37 colonies. Most species take centuries to achieve that level of expansion." Li Tae studied the reports on the screen. Charts showed human population growth, industrial output, and technological development. The numbers were impressive, but he had never thought of them as threatening. What did they want us to do? Stop growing? Stop learning? Some of them, yes, Yoon said quietly. There's talk of limiting human expansion to our current territories. Others suggest mandatory technology sharing agreements. Few even propose military oversight of our colonies. The captain felt a chill run down his spine. They want to control us. They want to feel safe, Yoon corrected. But the result would be the same. "Captain, I need you to understand something. This council session today will determine humanity's future in galactic politics. If we're rejected, we'll be on our own. If we're accepted, with severe restrictions, we might wish we had been rejected." They made their way to the council chambers, a vast circular room with seating for representatives from over 100 species. The center of the room featured a raised platform where speakers could address the assembly. High above, a dome showed the stars outside, reminding everyone of the vastness of space they all shared. Li Tae took his seat in the observation area while Yoon joined the other ambassadors on the main floor. The chamber filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. The Rolani representatives looked like walking crystals, their bodies reflecting light in beautiful patterns. The Mothery resembled giant insects, their compound eyes glittering as they communicated through rapid clicking sounds. The Drachna delegation sat in heavy armor, their reptilian faces hidden behind ceremonial masks. The session began with formal presentations. Each major species voiced their concerns about human membership. Alani spoke about resource consumption and environmental impact. Alani discussed trade route disruptions and economic instability. The Drachner questioned human military intentions and expansion patterns. Li Te listened as speaker after speaker painted humanity as a potential threat. They made humans sound like a plague spreading across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. The descriptions bore little resemblance to the people he knew, the families working hard to build new lives on distant worlds. The scientists pushing the boundaries of knowledge, the artists creating beauty among the stars. Then a new voice spoke from the chamber floor, a request permission to address the assembly. The speaker was unlike any alien Li Te had seen before. He stood barely 5 feet tall, his skin a pale blue-gray color that seemed to shimmer in the chamber's light. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face gave him an otherworldly appearance. His voice carried a strange quality, as if it came from very far away. "The assembly recognizes Kale, 4th of the Nethrin Collective," announced the chamber's moderator. Kale. Worth walked slowly to the center platform, his movements deliberate and careful. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber with an authority that demanded attention. "Honored representatives, I have lived for 300 of your standard years. I have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations across this galaxy. I have seen species reach for the stars and others fall into darkness. I have studied the patterns of war and peace, of growth and decay, of hope and despair." The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background chatter of translators seemed to quiet. "You debate whether to accept humanity into our community based on fear of what they might become. But I tell you now, based on everything I have observed, everything I have learned, everything I have seen in the currents of time and space, that your greatest danger lies not in accepting them, but in rejecting them." Kaelvorth paused, his 3 eyes scanning the assembly. "This species called humanity possesses something rare and terrible. They have the capacity for both great creation and utter destruction. But here's what you must understand above all. Else, if you strike first against them, they will never stop coming. Never stop fighting. Never stop until every last threat to their kind is eliminated." The chamber erupted in discussion, but Kaelvorth raised his hand for silence. "I have seen this pattern before, on worlds now empty, among species now extinct. The humans have something in their nature that most of us lack. When threatened as a species, when facing extinction, they do not simply fight for survival. They fight for total victory. They adapt faster than evolution allows. They learn from every defeat. They turn every loss into knowledge for future battles." Li Te felt the weight of every eye in the chamber. Ali. Some looked at the human delegation with new fear, others with curiosity, still others with what might have been respect. "Accept them as equals," Kaelvorth continued, "and they will be valuable allies. Reject them, and they will find their own path among the stars. But strike first against them. Threaten their families, their children, their future, and you will awaken something that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be bargained with, and will not stop until it has won completely." The prophet's words hung in the air like a physical presence. Then he stepped down from the platform and walked slowly back to his seat, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. The session ended without a vote. The council decided to postpone the decision for further discussion. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Li Te noticed many of them looking at him and Yuan Hannah with new expressions. Some showed fear, others calculation, and a few showed what looked like the beginnings of hostility. Later, quiet at the human quarters, Yuan, Hannah, and Li Te sat in troubled silence. "Do you think he was trying to help us or hurt us?" Li Te finally asked. Yuan Hannah stared out the window at the stars. "I think he was trying to save lives. The question is whose lives, and whether anyone will listen to his warning." Neither of them noticed the small recording device that had captured every word of their conversation. or the alien figure that retrieved it from the shadows outside their door. The warning had been given, but warnings are only useful if people choose to heed them. In the depths of space, on ships and worlds across the galaxy, other conversations were beginning. Some spoke of opportunity, others of threat. All of them would soon learn whether the old prophet's words were wisdom or simply the fears of a dying race. The first moves in a game that would reshape the galaxy had already begun. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity's membership application. Captain Li Tay stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Harmony, patrolling the outer edges of human space. The rejection still stung, but life had continued. Human colonies kept growing. Trade ships moved between worlds, and children were born under alien suns. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command," announced Communications Officer Park Jen. His voice carried an urgency that made Li Tay look up from his reports. "Put it through," Li Tay ordered, moving to the main screen. The face of Admiral Song Min appeared, her expression grim and tired. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she had not slept in days. "Captain Lee, return to Earth immediately." "We have a situation," Admiral Song said, without any greeting. "I'm sending you classified files now. Review them during your journey. This is not a drill." The transmission ended abruptly. Li Tay stared at the blank screen while Park Jen worked at his station, downloading the encrypted files. The captain had known Admiral Song for 10 years. McKay had never seen her look so worried. "Course set for Earth, Captain," reported Navigator Kim Roo. "At maximum speed, we'll arrive in 4 days. Make it 3 days," Li Tay ordered. "Push the engines if you have to." As the Harmony jumped to faster than light travel, Li Tay retreated to his quarters to read the classified files. What he found made his blood run cold. The files contained intelligence reports from human agents across the galaxy. Over the past month, 12 major alien species had been meeting in secret. They called themselves the Hegemony Alliance, and their purpose was simple: eliminate the human threat before it grew stronger. The Drakner Empire led the alliance, providing military leadership and most of the warships. The Relani Collective offered their advanced shield technology and long-range weapons. The Mothri Trading Union supplied funding and logistical support. 9 other species contributed ships, soldiers, or strategic resources, according to the intelligence. The alliance planned to strike human colonies simultaneously, targeting civilian populations to break human morale quickly. They believed that humans, like most species, would surrender when faced with overwhelming force and the threat of extinction. Li Tay read one particular report that made his hands shake. The alliance had studied human history and concluded that humans were too emotional and disorganized to mount effective resistance. They expected total victory within weeks. The captain was still reading when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. He rushed to the bridge, where Park Jin was frantically working at his communication station. "Sir, we're receiving emergency transmissions from multiple human colonies," Park Jin reported, his voice breaking. "New Sol colony is under attack. They're reporting massive bombardment from orbit. Military and civilian targets both." "How many ships?" Li Tay demanded. "Least 50, sir. Drakner, heavy cruisers, and Relani battleships. The colony's defenses were destroyed in the first wave." More reports flooded in over the next hour. The attack was coordinated and brutal. The alliance had struck 13 human worlds simultaneously, focusing their assault on the most populated colonies. New Sol, with its 3 million inhabitants, is the largest target. Lieutenant Kim Soo ran onto the bridge, tears streaming down her face. "Captain, my family lives on New Sol. My parents, my little brother. The transmissions just stopped." Li Tay placed a hand on the young officer's shoulder. Kim Soo was one of his best pilots, barely 22 years old. Her brother was only 15. We'll get there as fast as we can, Lieutenant. But even as he spoke the words, Li Tay knew they would arrive too late. The Harmony was just one ship, and the Alliance had deployed hundreds over the next 2 days. As the Harmony raced toward Earth, more devastating news arrived. Colony after colony fell silent. When Alliance forces encountered resistance, they responded by targeting civilian shelters and schools. Videos leaked through hidden communication networks showed Drachner soldiers executing human prisoners. R'Lani ships bombarded cities with no military value. By the time the Harmony reached Earth, the scope of the disaster was clear. 13 human worlds had been attacked. 8 had fallen completely. The other 5 were under siege. 4 million human civilians were dead, captured, or missing. General Park Jin met Captain Li Tay at Earth's orbital command station. The general looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. His usually perfect uniform was wrinkled, and his eyes held a hardness Li Tay had never seen before. "Captain, we need every ship and every officer for what comes next," General Park said without pleasantries. "The Alliance sent us a surrender demand 2 hours ago. They want complete disarmament, evacuation of all colonies, and acceptance of alien oversight over Earth itself." "What did President Choi tell them?" Li Tay asked. General Park's expression grew even harder. "The President is meeting with the Defense Council now. I can tell you what every person on this station already knows. We don't surrender to murderers." They walked through the command center, where hundreds of officers worked at monitoring stations. The displays showed the locations of human colonies, defense ships, and Alliance forces. The numbers were not encouraging. Humanity had 47 combat ships. The Alliance had over 300. "Sir, the President is addressing the planet in 10 minutes, announced the communications officer. "All stations are to broadcast the speech." Li Tay and General Park joined the crowd, gathering around the main display screen. President Choi Min appeared, standing behind the podium in the Earth Global Assembly. Her face was calm, but her voice carried steel. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, I speak to you at the darkest hour in our species' history. The Alien Alliance has struck our worlds without warning, without provocation, and without mercy. They have killed our children, destroyed our cities, and demanded our surrender." The President paused, looking directly into the camera. "They believe we will collapse under pressure, that we will choose slavery over resistance. They have studied our history and concluded that we are too weak, too divided, too emotional to fight back effectively." Another pause. When President Choi continued, her voice rose with determination. "They are wrong. Today, I am declaring a state of total war. Every human world, every ship, every citizen is now part of our defense. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. Will not forgive." Cheers erupted throughout the command center. But Li Tay noticed something else in the faces around him. The shock and grief were still there, but underneath was something new, something cold and calculating, something that reminded him of the Prophet's warning. "Captain," General Park said quietly, "report to Admiral Song immediately. You're being reassigned to the Strategic Response Division." "What does that division do?" Li Tay asked. "We studied our enemies," General Park replied. "We learned their weaknesses. We plan our revenge." As Li Tay made his way to Admiral Song's office, he passed through sections of the station he had never seen before. Laboratories where scientists worked on captured alien technology. Training rooms where soldiers practiced new combat techniques. Manufacturing bays where engineers built weapons designed specifically to kill the species that had attacked humanity in one laboratory. He saw Dr. Song Hai examining pieces of a Drachner ship that had been destroyed over New Seoul. The scientist looked up as Li Tay passed, her eyes bright with discovery. "Captain, look at this," she called out, holding up a piece of alien metal. Their armor is strong against energy weapons, but it has a weakness. A specific frequency of sound makes it brittle. We can turn their greatest strength into their greatest vulnerability. Li Te paused at the laboratory door. Long. You've been working on this? Since the moment we got word of the attacks, Dr. Song replied. The president ordered every scientist, every engineer, every researcher to drop their current projects. Everything we do now has one purpose: victory. As Li Te continued to Admiral Song's office, he thought about Kale Vort's warning. The old prophet had said that striking first against humanity would awaken something terrible. Looking around the command station, seeing the cold determination on every face, Li Te began to understand what the prophet had meant. The Alliance had wanted to crush human resistance before it could begin. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in human nature, something that turned grief into fury, fear into determination, and scattered colonies into a unified force focused on one goal. The first strike had been the Alliance's greatest mistake. Now they would learn what humanity was truly capable of when pushed beyond the breaking point. The war had begun, and humanity would make sure it ended on their terms. 6 months after the first strike, Commander Jiang Wu crouched behind the twisted remains of a defense turret on Titan Station. The Hegemony Alliance had expected the mining station to fall within hours. Instead, the battle had raged for 3 weeks. Commander, the Drachner are moving up through Section 7, reported Sergeant Li Hyo through the communication device. Her voice was calm, despite the explosions echoing through the station corridors. Estimated 40 soldiers, heavy armor. Jiang Wu checked his weapon and looked at the 12 defenders with him. They were miners, engineers, and technicians who had never seen combat before the war began. Now, they moved like seasoned soldiers, their eyes hard and focused. Remember what we learned from the Europa battle, Jiang Wu said quietly. Drachner armor is strong, but the joints are weak. Aim for the neck and knee connections, and watch for their blind spot on the left side. The defenders nodded. Every human fighter now carried detailed information about alien weaknesses. What had taken the galaxy thousands of years to learn about each species, humans had discovered in months of desperate study. The Drachner soldiers entered the chamber in tight formation, their reptilian faces hidden behind combat masks. They expected to find frightened civilians hiding behind makeshift barriers. Instead, they walked into a carefully planned trap. The human defenders struck from multiple directions, using modified mining tools that could pierce alien armor. They moved with coordination that surprised the attackers, communicating through hand signals and practiced teamwork. Within minutes, the Drachner formation was broken. Sector 7 secured. Jiang Wu reported to Station Command. Enemy casualties heavy, no human losses. This scene was repeating across human space. What the hegemony had expected to be a quick conquest had become a grinding nightmare. Every human colony, every space station, every mining outpost had become a fortress filled with people who refused to surrender. On Earth, Dr. Kim Yan worked in her laboratory deep beneath the planet's surface. Banks of computers surrounded her, processing data from every battle, every encounter, every piece of captured alien technology. The transformation of human society amazed even her. Doctor, we have new intelligence from the Proxima raid, announced her assistant, Engineer Cho Nam. He handed her a data tablet filled with technical specifications. Dr. Kim studied the information with bright eyes. Excellent. The Relani energy shields have another weakness we can exploit. Their power source creates a resonance frequency every 47 seconds. If we time our attacks correctly, we can punch through their defenses. This was how humans fought now. Every battle became a learning experience. Every defeat taught them something new about their enemies. Every victory revealed more weaknesses to exploit. The hegemony forces found themselves facing an enemy that adapted faster than should have been possible. Captain Hansu commanded the defense fleet around Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. The Drachner had sent their best admiral, Lex Morton, to crush the human resistance there once and for all. 50 alien warships approached the small human fleet of 8 converted cargo ships. "Captain, the enemy is demanding our surrender," reported Communications Officer Park. "So, Admiral Dex says we have 1 hour to evacuate the colony." Hansu looked at the tactical display. The odds were impossible by any normal standard. But humans had stopped thinking in normal terms months ago. "Signal the mining platforms," Hansu ordered. "Begin Operation Deep Strike." What Admiral Dex saw next would be reported throughout hegemony space as either brilliant tactics or complete madness. The human cargo ships began moving directly toward the alien fleet, not away from it. At the same time, automated mining platforms hidden in Europa's ice fields activated, launching themselves into space. The mining platforms were not warships. They were industrial machines designed to crack apart asteroids, but human engineers had made modifications. Each platform now carried explosive charges powerful enough to damage a battleship. Admiral Dex ordered his ships to destroy the approaching platforms, but the human cargo ships used the distraction to close the distance. When the alien fleet focused fire on the larger human ships, the platforms struck their targets. When they targeted the platforms, the human ships attacked with weapons that should not have existed. "How are they penetrating our shields?" Admiral Dex demanded as his flagship shook under human fire. His science officer studied the readings with confusion. "Sir, they are using our own shield frequency against us. Somehow they have learned to reverse our defensive systems." The Battle of Europa ended with complete destruction of the Drachner fleet. Admiral Dex's flagship was the only ship to escape, and it carried news that terrified the hegemony leadership. Humans were not just surviving the war. They were winning. Back on Earth, President Choi Min met with her military advisors in the deep bunkers beneath the capital. The reports coming in from across human space painted a picture that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "Madam President, our forces have successfully defended 17 colony worlds," reported General Park Jin. "The enemy has been forced to retreat from 6 systems they had occupied. Our casualty rates continue to drop while there's increase." President Choi studied the strategic maps covering the walls. Red markers showed hegemony positions. Blue showed human territories. Just months ago, the red had been overwhelming. Now, the blue was expanding. "What about our industrial capacity?" she asked. "Production has increased by 300%, answered Economic Minister Yoon Tak. "Every factory, every workshop, every school has been converted to support the war effort. We are building ships faster than the hegemony can destroy them." This was the transformation that Kelvorth had warned about. Humanity had awakened something that existed in no other species. When faced with extinction, they did not simply fight harder. They became something entirely different. Children as young as 10 worked in intelligence networks, memorizing alien languages and tactical patterns. Elderly scientists developed new technologies by combining human ingenuity with captured alien knowledge. Artists created propaganda that unified human colonies across dozens of worlds. Most importantly, humans began to think like a single organism dedicated to survival and victory. Information flowed instantly between colonies. Successful tactics spread through human forces within days. Every human became a soldier, scientist, and intelligence agent. Lieutenant Kim Soo, who had lost her family on New Seoul, now commanded a squadron of fighter ships built from salvaged alien technology. Her pilots were farmers, teachers, and shop owners who had learned to fly in months what normally took years to master. "Squadron leader, we have a Relani patrol approaching Sector 4, her wing commander reported. Orders. Kim Soo checked her instruments. The alien ships were superior in every way to human fighters. Faster, more heavily armed, better shielded. 6 months ago, engaging them would have been suicide. Remember their blind spot timing? Kim Soo ordered. TAC Pattern 7. Exploit the shield resonance. Make them pay for what they did to our families. The human fighters struck like a pack of wolves, using tactics that violated every rule of space combat. They sacrificed individual safety for group effectiveness. They took risks that seemed insane, but were actually carefully calculated. They fought not just to win the battle, but to learn how to win the war. Across the galaxy, hegemony forces began reporting something they had never encountered before. An enemy that grew stronger with every defeat, smarter with every battle, more dangerous with every passing day. In his private chambers on the Draknar homeworld, Admiral Dex Morden studied intelligence reports with growing fear. The humans were doing more than defending their territory. They were preparing for something larger. "Sir, our spies report massive ship construction in human space," his aide reported nervously. "Not just defensive ships, long-range vessels designed for deep space operations." Admiral Dex closed his eyes. He remembered the old prophet's warning about humans who would never stop once they were struck first. Now he understood what those words meant. The humans were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win completely. And from everything he had seen, they might actually succeed. The awakening was complete. Humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. A species united in purpose, unlimited in determination, and absolutely committed to the total defeat of anyone who threatened their existence. The real war was about to begin. 2 years had passed since the Hegemony Alliance launched their first strike against humanity. Admiral No Yan stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Vengeance, watching alien ships burn in the void of space. What had once been a Rilani military base was now twisted metal drifting in the darkness. "Admiral, all enemy vessels have been destroyed or disabled," reported Captain Li Tay from his position at the tactical station. His face showed the same hard determination that marked every human officer now. "The base's data cores are intact." "Excellent," Admiral No replied. "Begin salvage operations. I want every piece of technology, every communication record, every strategic plan they have." This was Operation Deep Strike, humanity's new approach to warfare. No longer content to simply defend their colonies, human forces now struck deep into enemy territory. They hunted hegemony fleets across the galaxy, learning their secrets and taking their technology. The Vengeance was itself a symbol of human adaptation, built from the wreckage of destroyed alien ships. It combined the best features of Draknar engineering, Rilani energy systems, and human innovation. Weapons that had once seemed impossible to build now armed human vessels throughout their fleet. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command," announced Communications Officer Park. "So, Fleet Command wants to speak with you immediately." The image of Fleet Admiral Songmin appeared on the main screen. Cajun, behind her, Li Tay could see the massive war room that now coordinated human military operations across dozens of star systems. "Admiral, no, excellent work on the Rilani base," Fleet Admiral Song said. "The intelligence you recovered has given us the locations of 3 more hegemony supply depots, but we have a bigger target for your next mission." A star map appeared on the screen, showing the central regions of hegemony space. A red marker indicated a heavily defended system near the Draknar homeworld. "The Draknar home fleet is gathering here," Fleet Admiral Song continued. "Over 200 ships, including their newest battleships. Its intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive against our core worlds." Admiral No studied the tactical display. The enemy fleet was massive, protected by orbital defense platforms and stationed near their most important worlds. What are our orders? Destroy them, Fleet Admiral Song said simply. All of them. Use whatever methods necessary. The Drachner military must be eliminated as a threat. After the transmission ended, Admiral No called his senior officers to the briefing room. The plan they developed would have been considered impossible 2 years ago. Now, it was simply another mission. We used the new cloaking technology Dr. Kim Yan developed, Admiral No explained to his staff. 15 ships will approach the Drachner fleet from multiple directions. We strike simultaneously, targeting their command vessels first. Captain Li Tae raised a concern. Admiral, even with our improvements, we'll be outnumbered 10-1. The Drachner have their best ships and commanders defending that system. That's exactly why we need to hit them, Admiral No replied. Every major Drachner fleet commander will be there. If we can defeat them, we crippled their military leadership for years. 3 days later, the human task force approached the Drachner home system. Their ships moved silently through space, invisible to enemy sensors, thanks to technology reverse engineered from captured Gemini vessels. Commander O. Min piloted the lead attack ship, a fast cruiser equipped with the most advanced human weapons. Through the viewports, she could see the Drachner fleet arranged in defensive formations around their gas giant base. All ships, this is Admiral No, came the voice through the communication system. Remember, we are not just fighting for victory. Today, we are fighting to end this war. Every ship we destroy, every commander we eliminate, brings us closer to peace. The attack began with perfect coordination. Human ships decloaked simultaneously, their weapons already locked onto priority targets. The first wave of fire destroyed 6 Drachner command ships before the enemy even knew they were under attack. But the Drachner were not helpless. As alarms sounded throughout their fleet, they responded with the discipline of a professional military force. Hundreds of weapons turned toward the human attackers, filling space with deadly energy beams. Taking heavy fire, reported Commander O. Min as her ship shook under enemy bombardment. Port shields are failing. All ships execute Formation Delta, Admiral No ordered. Target their heavy cruisers. The human ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully planned. They used the Drachner fleet's size against them, forcing the larger ships to risk hitting their own vessels when firing at the fast-moving human attackers. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, over half the Drachner home fleet was destroyed or disabled. Tavers retreated in disorder, their command structure shattered. But the victory came at a cost, for human ships were lost, including Commander O. Min's cruiser, as rescue teams searched for survivors. Admiral No reflected on how much the war had changed everyone involved. 2 years ago, losing 4 ships would have been a disaster for humanity. Now, it was an acceptable price for eliminating the enemy's main fleet. Human thinking had become as cold and calculating as their new weapons. Meanwhile, on the Relani homeworld, Crystal Singer Velthara met with a few remaining leaders of the Hegemony Alliance. The crystal beings communicated through light patterns that reflected their emotional states. Today, those patterns showed fear. The human attacks grow bolder each month, Velthara signaled to the assembled council. They strike our bases, capture our ships, and disappear before reinforcements arrive. Our military advantage shrinks with every encounter. The Mothri representative, Trademaster, clicked nervously with his mandibles. My fleet's report. Constant harassment by human raiders. They know our shipping routes better than we do. How's this possible? They learn, replied War Leader Gorth, Kek of the Drachner. Every battle teaches them something new. Every captured ship gives them new technology. They adapt faster than any species in known history. Velthar's light patterns shifted too deep. Blue, indicating profound concern. Perhaps it is time to consider negotiation. The costs of this war grow higher each day. Negotiation. War leader Gort's voice carried disbelief. To what we did to their colonies, their new soul, and the others. They will never forgive. They will never stop. The truth of those words hung heavy in the council chamber. The Hegemony Alliance had started this war believing humans would surrender quickly when faced with superior force. Instead, they had created an enemy that grew stronger with every passing day on Earth. President Choi Min addressed the Global Assembly as she had every month since the war began. But today's speech was different. Instead of defiance and determination, her words carried the cold certainty of approaching victory. Citizens of humanity, our forces continue to push back the enemy on all fronts, she announced. The Hegemony Alliance is retreating from systems they have held for generations. Their supply lines are broken. Their fleets scatter before our advance. The president paused, looking directly into the cameras that carried her words to every human world. But we must remember why we fight. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but for survival. The enemy chose to make this a war of extinction. We have accepted those terms. Ambassador Yoon Hana listened with mixed emotions. She remembered the diplomatic missions before the war, when humanity had sought peaceful integration with galactic civilization. That dream was dead now, burned away in the fires of New Seoul and the other destroyed colonies. But something else had taken its place. Something harder and more focused. Humanity had learned that the galaxy was not a safe place for peaceful species. They had adapted accordingly. Dr. Song Hai, now Director of Weapons Research, presented her latest developments to the military leadership. Her laboratory had become the most important facility on Earth, turning captured alien technology into instruments of human victory. The new pulse weapons can penetrate any known alien shielding, she explained, displaying holographic projections of her designs. And the neural disruptors will disable enemy ships without destroying them, allowing us to capture more technology. How long until full production? Asked General Park Jin. 6 months for the pulse weapons, 1 year for the disruptors, Dr. Song replied. But I have something even better in development. Weapon that targets the specific frequencies used by alien nervous systems. The implications were clear. Humanity was no longer content with defeating enemy ships. They were developing weapons designed to defeat enemy species permanently. As the meeting ended, General Park walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital. The city bustled with activity as millions of people worked toward the same goal: total victory over anyone who threatened human survival in the distance. Ships rose from construction yards, carrying weapons that would have been impossible to imagine 3 years ago. Each vessel represented months of learning, adaptation, and relentless improvement. The tide of war had turned completely. The Hegemony Alliance now fought desperately to survive the monster they had awakened. But as Kaelvorth had warned, striking first against humanity had consequences that could not be undone. 5 years after the first strike on New Seoul, Fleet Admiral Shin, you stood on the bridge of the massive human dreadnought, Retribution, watching the capital world of the former Hegemony Alliance grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Prime, once the seat of galactic power, now lay defenseless before the approaching human fleet. The transformation was complete. What had begun as a desperate defense of human colonies had become the conquest of half the galaxy. 7 of the 12 Alliance species had surrendered unconditionally. 3 others had been defeated so thoroughly that their civilizations barely existed. The remaining 2, the Drakner and Relani, had retreated to this final stronghold. Admiral, the planetary government is requesting permission to speak, reported Communications Officer Kim Dahl. His voice carried none of the excitement that might have been expected. After years of war, human emotions had become as focused and controlled as their military operations. Put them through, Admiral Shin ordered. The image that appeared on screen showed beings that had once commanded respect across the galaxy. Crystal Singer, Valthara of the Relani, flickered with pale, frightened light patterns. Beside her, War Leader Gorth, Kek of the Drachner, looked aged and defeated, his once proud armor now dented and worn. Admiral Shin, Valthara began, her light patterns stuttering with fear. We request terms for surrender. Our fleets are destroyed. Our colonies are occupied. We offer complete submission to human authority. Admiral Shin studied the alien leaders with cold eyes. You had the opportunity to surrender 4 years ago. You chose to continue fighting. You lost the right to negotiate when you murdered civilians on New Sol. War Leader Gorth stepped forward. What do you want from us? Total extinction. The death of every Drachner and Relani in the galaxy. That depends, Admiral Shin replied, on how completely you surrender, and how willing you are to face justice for your crimes. The transmission ended. Admiral Shin turned to Captain Li Te, who now served as his chief of staff. The younger officer had survived the entire war, growing from a diplomatic captain into one of humanity's most effective military commanders. Begin the occupation, Admiral Shin ordered. Standard protocols, stable all military installations, secure government facilities, and establish communication networks. Any resistance is to be met with overwhelming force as the landing proceeded. Without opposition, human forces, now equipped with technology superior to anything the galaxy had ever seen, kicked control of Nexus Prime within hours. The planet that had once housed the council chambers where humanity was denied membership now flew human flags from every government building on Earth. President Kim Hee-on addressed the human colonies in the galaxy beyond. Speech was broadcast on every communication network, translated into hundreds of alien languages. 5 years ago, the Hegemony Alliance chose war over peace. President Kim began. They attacked our colonies without provocation. They murdered our civilians without mercy. They believed we would surrender when faced with superior numbers. Okay? The president paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. They were wrong. Today, the war ends. Not with negotiation, not with compromise, but with a complete victory. The alliance that sought to destroy us is destroyed. Okay? Their fleets are broken. Their leaders await judgment. In the former council chambers of Nexus Prime, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Judge Eugene, formerly a colonial administrator, who had lost her entire family on New Sol, now presided over the War Crimes Tribunal that would determine the fate of Alliance leadership. Admiral Dex Morden, the Drachner commander who had ordered the destruction of New Sol, stood in chains before the human court. His reptilian features showed no emotion, but his eyes held the knowledge of approaching death. Admiral Dex Morden, Judge, you began. Reading from the charges, you stand accused of genocide, crimes against civilian populations, and violation of interstellar law. The evidence against you includes direct communication records ordering the bombardment of non-military targets. The trial was broadcast throughout human space and to any alien worlds that chose to watch. It was not about revenge, though many humans certainly wanted that. It was about establishing a new order in the galaxy. Dr. Songhai, now Minister of Science and Technology, presented evidence of systematic targeting of civilian populations. Her voice remained calm and professional as she described the alliance's deliberate strategy of terror. The defendants specifically chose to target schools, hospitals, and residential areas. Dr. Song testified. This was not military strategy. This was attempted genocide designed to break human morale through the murder of innocents. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Admiral Dex and 17 other Alliance commanders were found guilty of war crimes. Their sentences were carried out publicly, broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to anyone who might threaten human civilization in the future. But the real transformation of galactic society was happening in the occupied territories. Human administrators, led by Governor Park Min, began implementing what they called the Integration Protocol. Unlike previous galactic conquerors, humans did not enslave or exploit the defeated species. Instead, they rebuilt. Alien worlds that had been damaged in the war received human technology and expertise. Educational systems were established to teach alien children human languages and values. The goal is not domination, Governor Park explained to her staff. The goal is ensuring this never happens again. These species chose war because they feared human potential. Now they will learn to appreciate human protection. On the former Draknar homeworld, engineer Cho Nam supervised the construction of new industrial facilities. The planet's population, once proud warriors, now worked alongside human overseers to build ships and technology for the new galactic order. Sir, the Draknar workers are asking about their military traditions, reported his assistant, Lieutenant Kim Bo. They want to know if their young people will ever be allowed to serve in combat roles again. Cho Nam considered the question carefully. They can serve in the Human Defense Forces under human command after completing loyalty training. But the days of independent Draknar military forces are over forever. This was the new reality across former Alliance space. Alien species could live, work, and even prosper under human rule, but they would never again have the power to threaten human survival. Ambassador Yoon Hana, now serving as Director of Alien Affairs, met regularly with representatives from the former Alliance species. Her job was to help them understand their place in the new galactic order. You must understand, she explained to a gathering of Relani leaders. Humanity does not seek to destroy your culture or your people, but you chose to make survival a zero-sum game. You lost. The terms of your existence now depend entirely on human generosity. On a distant world, at the edge of known space, the dying prophet, Kaelvorth, received visitors for the last time. Captain Lite and a small human delegation had come to pay their respects to the being who had tried to warn the galaxy about humanity's true nature. Prophet Kael, Captain Lee said softly, your warning was ignored. The Alliance struck first, as you predicted they would. Now they face the consequences you foretold. The ancient Netherlan's 3 eyes focused on the human officer with difficulty. His voice was barely a whisper. I saw the patterns of war across 1,000 worlds, but even I did not foresee how completely humans would reshape the galaxy once awakened to their full potential. What did you see in your visions? Captain Lee asked. Kaelvorth's light dimmed further. I saw species that chose violence over wisdom. I saw civilizations that preferred fear to friendship. And I saw humanity's response. Absolute, implacable, final. The galaxy is safer now, but it will never again be free of human vigilance. The prophet died 3 days later, the last of his species. His final words, recorded by the human delegation, became part of the historical record. I warned them that humans would never stop if struck first. What I failed to foresee was that once humanity achieved victory, they would never again allow themselves to be vulnerable. Perhaps that is as it should be. 10 years later, the galaxy operated under what historians called the human peace trade, flowed freely between worlds under human protection. Scientific advancement accelerated under human guidance. Wars between species became impossible under human oversight. But everyone understood the price of this peace. Humanity had learned that the galaxy was not safe for peaceful civilizations. They had adapted accordingly, becoming the guardian species that would never again allow genocide to threaten the innocent, the old galactic order, where might determined right and strong species preyed upon the weak, was dead. In its place stood something new, a civilization were humanity's infinite capacity for both creation and destruction ensured that striking first against any peaceful species would bring swift and total retribution. Keilvorth had been right. Humanity, once awakened, would never stop. But he had also been incomplete in his vision. Humanity would never stop protecting those who could not protect themselves. Never stop building a galaxy where children of all species could grow up in safety, and never stop ensuring that the mistakes of the Hegemony Alliance could never be repeated.